The morning fog rolled thick over Oakland's industrial district when Marcus Reed heard the expensive engine coughing outside his garage. He didn't need to look up from the transmission he was rebuilding to know it wasn't the usual rusted pickup truck that limped into his shop. This sound belonged to wealth, rarely found in East Oakland. Marcus wiped grease from his calloused hands with a rag that had seen better decades. At 26, his sandy brown hair was already streaked with premature gray, a souvenir from nights spent sleeping in his car after his Boston Irish Catholic family discovered his truth. The garage told the story of 7 years spent clawing back from nothing. Through the open bay door, a black Tesla Model S sat silent, its sleek curves reflecting the California morning light like obsidian. Steam rose from beneath its hood in thin wisps that spoke of serious engine trouble. Marcus approached slowly, his engineer's mind cataloging possibilities. His MIT training hadn't been wasted. Even if he'd never gotten to finish, the Tesla's driver's side door opened with a whisper, revealing a man in his mid-40s whose tailored suit probably cost more than Marcus made in 3 months. Jonathan Sterling stepped out with practiced confidence, someone who'd never had to doubt whether he belonged anywhere. His dark hair perfectly styled, jaw clean-shaven, blue eyes holding wariness that came from having too much to lose. But it wasn't Jonathan that made Marcus's breath catch. It was the small figure in the passenger seat, a girl with Jonathan's same intelligent blue eyes and dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Sophia Sterling sat perfectly still, her legs motionless beneath a soft pink blanket. 8 years old, Marcus guessed, with the kind of serious expression children shouldn't have to wear. Marcus cleared his throat gently, addressing Jonathan while keeping his voice low enough not to startle Sophia. The Tesla's diagnostic computer was throwing multiple error codes, cooling system failure and battery temperature regulation. As he explained the likely issues, Marcus noticed how Jonathan's posture remained rigid, protective. There was something familiar in that stance, a defensiveness Marcus recognized from his own mirror. While Jonathan made phone calls to his office, canceling meetings with the crisp efficiency of Silicon Valley royalty, Marcus found himself drawn to Sophia. She sat quietly, watching him work with curious eyes that reminded him painfully of his younger brother Danny. Danny, who'd been born with cerebral palsy and spent his short life in medical devices that never quite fit right. Sophia's wheelchair, visible now as Jonathan helped her transfer from the car, was state-of-the-art technology wrapped in sleek titanium and carbon fiber. But Marcus's trained eye caught subtle signs of discomfort in how she held her shoulders, the way her fingers gripped the armrest too tightly. The chair was engineered for aesthetics and prestige, not for the daily reality of an 8-year-old's life. As he worked on the Tesla's cooling system, replacing sensors and recalibrating the battery management system, Marcus found himself stealing glances at Sophia's chair. The weight distribution was wrong. The support angles would cause pressure points. The control interface was designed for adult hands, forcing her into awkward reaching positions that would strain her back over time. It wasn't just engineering that Marcus saw. It was Danny all over again. Danny, who died at 12 because his family couldn't afford better equipment and was too proud to ask for help. Danny, whose last words had been an apology for being too much trouble. When the Tesla purred back to life, its systems running smoothly once again, Marcus should have been satisfied with a job well done. Instead, he found himself approaching Jonathan with the same careful precision he'd use on a delicate repair. There was something about Sophia's mobility chair that wasn't quite right. The words hung in the air between them like a bridge. Neither man was sure they wanted to cross. Sometimes profound changes begin not with grand gestures, but with one person noticing what everyone else has learned to overlook. Subscribe to Heart Stories. Jonathan Sterling had built his fortune by reading people as carefully as market trends. The mechanic standing before him was clearly brilliant. His technical explanation demonstrated engineering knowledge that rivaled MIT graduates. But Marcus Reed also carried himself with the careful posture of someone who'd learned not to expect kindness from the world. Jonathan knew that defensive stance intimately. He'd perfected it during boarding school when classmates whispered about his failure to date girls. During Harvard, when professors questioned his lack of female companionship, during his marriage to Catherine when he tried desperately to love her the way she deserved, Marcus was explaining ergonomic stress points in Sophia's wheelchair when Jonathan realized he'd been staring. There was something about the way Marcus's hands moved as he spoke, sure and gentle, that reminded Jonathan of another life he'd once imagined for himself. For Catherine's death had locked him into permanent guilt, and before raising Sophia alone became his entire world. Sophia seemed fascinated by Marcus in a way that surprised Jonathan. She rarely warmed to strangers, especially adults who spoke to her father instead of directly to her. But Marcus knelt to her eye level when he explained technical concepts, using language she could understand without being condescending. He asked her opinion about the chair's controls, listened seriously to her answers. Over the following days, Marcus spent evenings in the Sterling Mansion's workshop, which Jonathan had converted from the pool house after Sophia's accident. The space was filled with prototype medical devices, abandoned projects from the best engineers money could hire. Marcus moved through it like an artist in a studio, understanding the half-finished dreams scattered across workbenches. Jonathan found himself staying late in the workshop too, ostensibly to supervise but really to watch Marcus work. There was something meditative about observing the careful precision with which Marcus approached each component, the way he tested joint flexibility, measured pressure distribution, calculated weight ratios. The breakthrough came when Marcus discovered the fundamental flaw in the chair's design philosophy. The engineers had optimized for adult reviewers at medical conferences, not for the daily life of a growing child. They'd created something that looked revolutionary in promotional materials, but caused daily discomfort for the person who actually had to live in it. Marcus began rebuilding the control system first, relocating interface panels to accommodate Sophia's reach and hand strength. He rewrote movement and algorithms to respond more naturally to her input style. He replaced rigid support structures with adaptive systems that could accommodate her changing needs as she grew. But as word spread about the project, Jonathan began receiving calls from Dr. Harrison Webb, CEO of Sterling Medical Devices, the subsidiary that had manufactured Sophia's original chair. Webb had built his career on lucrative government contracts and high-profile medical partnerships. A small garage mechanic succeeding where his team had failed represented more than professional embarrassment. Webb's first attempt at sabotage was subtle. He arranged for immigration and customs enforcement to investigate Marcus's work visa status, hoping to discover irregularities that could force him to stop the project. When that failed, he contacted Marcus's former MIT advisor with questions about stolen intellectual property and academic misconduct. The pressure campaign escalated when Webb hired a cybersecurity firm to infiltrate Marcus's personal computer and steal his design files. The hackers discovered Marcus's detailed engineering notes for Sophia's new chair, along with preliminary sketches for other adaptive devices. Webb immediately filed provisional patents on the innovations. Marcus only discovered the theft when he tried to submit his own patent applications and was informed that the designs already existed in the system. The betrayal hit him like a physical blow, reopening wounds from his last relationship with David Chen, a venture capitalist who'd stolen Marcus's solar panel innovations and built a fortune while Marcus lost everything. Jonathan found Marcus sitting alone in the workshop at 3 a.m, staring at Sophia's partially completed chair. When Marcus explained what had happened, Jonathan felt a rage he hadn't experienced since Catherine's funeral. But Jonathan Sterling hadn't built a tech empire by accepting defeat. Trust, once broken, leaves scars that change how we see the world. But sometimes those scars teach us to distinguish between those who deserve our faith and those who would exploit it. The war between Jonathan Sterling and Dr. Harrison Webb erupted when Webb leaked a fabricated story to TechCrunch about Sterling Industries stealing medical innovations. The article portrayed Marcus as a disgruntled former employee seeking revenge against his ex-boyfriend's tech company, a narrative designed to destroy both his reputation and his relationship with Jonathan. Marcus read the article in Jonathan's kitchen while Sophia ate breakfast, her new wheelchair gleaming beside the table. The lies were sophisticated, mixing truth with distortions designed to humiliate. References to his MIT dismissal, his family's rejection, his failed relationship with David Chen, all twisted into a story of instability and vindictive deception. Jonathan found Marcus staring at his laptop screen, face pale with shock. For a moment, Jonathan glimpsed the frightened 19-year-old who'd been kicked out of his family home, the brilliant student forced to abandon his dreams, the man who'd learned that loving the wrong person could cost everything. But this time, Marcus wasn't alone. Jonathan made phone calls that demonstrated the difference between old money power and new money desperation. Within hours, he'd retained the Bay Area's most aggressive defamation attorney, hired a crisis management firm, and authorized his private investigator to begin building a criminal case against Webb for corporate espionage. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sophia had been quietly documenting every improvement Marcus made to her wheelchair. She'd created detailed video logs of her experience with the old chair versus the new one, timestamps showing her increased mobility, recordings explaining how different components affected her daily life. When Marcus activated the completed chair system for the final test, Sophia didn't just move smoothly across the workshop floor, she raced. She spun in circles with precise control. She navigated obstacles that would have been impossible with her original equipment. For the first time since her accident, she laughed with pure joy while moving independently. The transformation was so dramatic that Jonathan immediately understood why Webb had been desperate to steal the designs. This wasn't just an improvement, it was a revolution in assistive technology. Marcus had created something that could change the lives of thousands of children worldwide. Jonathan's legal team struck back with overwhelming force. They filed federal charges against Webb for wire fraud, corporate espionage, and patent theft. They subpoenaed Sterling Medical Devices' internal communications, revealing a pattern of stolen innovations and fraudulent patent claims stretching back years. But the most powerful weapon wasn't legal or financial. It was Sophia herself. When technology journalists came to verify the wheelchair innovations, they met a confident, articulate 8-year-old who could explain exactly how Marcus's engineering had changed her life. Her testimony was unscripted, authentic, and utterly devastating to Webb's narrative. The tide turned when Marcus and Jonathan appeared together at the annual Assistive Technology Conference in San Francisco. Instead of hiding from Webb's accusations, they embraced them. Jonathan publicly acknowledged his own sexuality for the first time, describing how meeting Marcus had taught him to stop living in fear of prejudices. Marcus presented their collaborative research to an audience of medical professionals, demonstrating innovations that address fundamental flaws in current assistive technology design. His presentation was technical, brilliant, and deeply personal, drawing connections between engineering principles and human dignity. When Dr. Webb attempted to disrupt the presentation with accusations of fraud, Sophia herself took the microphone. She challenged him to explain why his company's expensive equipment had caused her daily pain, while Marcus's innovations had given her freedom. The confrontation was recorded and went viral within hours. Webb's career ended that afternoon when Sterling Industries' board voted unanimously to terminate his employment and refer him for criminal prosecution. For Marcus, Jonathan, and Sophia, the victory represented something more profound than a professional vindication. When we face those who would tear us down, our greatest strength lies not in fighting alone, but in standing together with those who see our true worth. The aftermath of Webb's downfall brought unexpected revelations that would reshape everything Marcus thought he knew about Jonathan Sterling. 3 weeks after the Assistive Technology Conference, as they worked together in the Palo Alto workshop, Jonathan received a phone call that made his face go white with shock. His estranged brother Michael was calling from New York. Michael Sterling, the family rebel who'd been disowned 15 years earlier for refusing to marry the debutante their father had chosen. The brother whose existence had been erased from Sterling family history when he'd opened a small art gallery in Chelsea with his partner, David. Jonathan stepped outside to take the call, leaving Marcus alone with Sophia, who was testing voice command modifications to her chair. Through the window, Marcus watched Jonathan pace the garden, his body language shifting from rigid defensiveness to something that looked like grief, then wonder, then cautious hope. When Jonathan returned, His eyes were red-rimmed but brighter than Marcus had ever seen them. Michael had been following the news coverage of their legal victory against Webb. He'd seen the conference footage where Jonathan had publicly acknowledged his sexuality. For the first time in 15 years, Michael was reaching out to his younger brother. The conversation that followed was halting, painful, and ultimately liberating. Jonathan told Marcus about the Sterling family's expectations, about his father's threats to disinherit him if he ever brought shame to the family name, about Catherine Whitman, the senator's daughter he'd married to secure a political alliance, and how he'd tried desperately to love her genuinely. Catherine had known the truth about Jonathan from their engagement party. When she'd found him crying in the garden after their forced first kiss, she'd married him anyway, believing she could change him, believing that duty and companionship could substitute for passion. Their marriage had been a careful performance, successful in every way except the ones that mattered. When Sophia was born, both Jonathan and Catherine had poured all their love into their daughter, using parenthood to avoid confronting the emptiness between them. The car accident that killed Catherine had happened during one of their increasingly frequent fights about whether to have more children, about whether they could continue pretending to be happy. Marcus listened without judgment, recognizing in Jonathan's story the same themes of family pressure and forced conformity that had shaped his own life. The difference was that Jonathan had been wealthy enough to hide behind success and social position, while Marcus had been forced to choose between authenticity and security. But now, watching Sophia race her wheelchair around the workshop while designing modifications for other disabled children, both men could see how their painful histories had led them to this moment. They'd each survived different forms of rejection to become exactly the people Sophia needed in her life. The decision to move forward together wasn't dramatic or romantic. It grew gradually from shared late nights in the workshop, from Jonathan's increasing comfort with physical affection, from the way they'd learned to communicate through touch and glances when Sophia was watching. They were sitting on the workshop floor one evening, watching Sophia video chat with a girl in Portland who was getting her own modified wheelchair. When Jonathan reached for Marcus's hand and didn't let go, no words were necessary. They both understood that this was the moment when possibility became commitment. The public announcement came through Sterling Industries' press release announcing the formation of Sterling Reed Mobility Solutions, a new division dedicated to developing accessible technology for disabled children and adults. The company name itself was a statement, a public acknowledgement of their partnership in every sense. Jonathan's father called within hours of the announcement, threatening legal action and family exile. Jonathan listened calmly to the familiar ultimatums, then replied that he'd already been living in exile for 45 years. This was what coming home felt like. On the evening before the launch event, as they stood together in their Berkeley facility watching automated production lines create the first commercial units of Marcus's revolutionary designs, Jonathan and Marcus finally understood what they'd built together. Sometimes the greatest courage lies not in fighting against who we are, but in finally choosing to become the people we were always meant to be. 5 years later, on a crisp San Francisco morning, 13-year-old Sophia Sterling Reed addressed an audience of 500 disability rights advocates, medical professionals, and technology leaders gathered for the inaugural Global Accessibility Innovation Summit. Behind her, a massive screen displayed statistics that would have been unimaginable when she was 8 years old. Sterling Reed Mobility Solutions had become the world's leading manufacturer of adaptive technology for children and young adults. Their devices were in use across 43 countries. Their design principles had been adopted by major medical device companies. And their open-source approach had sparked a revolution in how engineers approached accessibility challenges. But for Sophia, now a confident teenager who moved through the world with the grace and speed that Marcus's innovations had made possible, the numbers mattered less than the faces in the audience. Children who could attend mainstream schools because they had equipment that kept up with their energy. Teenagers who could participate in sports, pursue hobbies, dream of careers that had once seemed impossible. Marcus watched from the wings, his arm around Jonathan's waist, both men glowing with pride that had nothing to do with their company's financial success. They'd learned that the truest measure of their achievement wasn't the patents they held or the awards they'd won, but the independence they'd helped restore to young lives. The journey hadn't been without challenges. Jonathan's father had followed through on his threats, legally disinheriting both his sons and attempting to block Michael's art gallery from using the Sterling name. The family fortune had been transferred to a conservative foundation that funded conversion therapy programs and anti-LGBTQ political candidates. But the Sterling brothers had discovered that chosen family could be stronger than blood relationships. Michael and his partner, David, had moved to San Francisco, where they'd opened a gallery that showcased work by LGBTQ artists and disability advocates. Their first exhibition, featuring Sophia's photography documenting the daily lives of children with different mobility challenges, had sold out on opening night. Marcus had reconnected with his MIT professor, Dr. Elena Vasquez, who'd become Sterling Reed's chief technology officer and had helped Marcus complete his degree through an accelerated program for working professionals. The diploma hanging in their Berkeley headquarters meant less to him than the moment when Sophia had called him dad for the first time. Jonathan's transformation had been equally profound. The man who'd once hidden behind corporate boardrooms and political connections now spoke openly at conferences about the intersection of business success and personal authenticity. He'd become a vocal advocate for LGBTQ inclusion in tech leadership and had used his wealth to fund scholarships for disabled students pursuing engineering degrees. Their romantic relationship had evolved with the same patience and intentionality that characterized their business partnership. They'd moved in together gradually, blending their lives around Sophia's needs and their shared commitment to the company. When they'd finally decided to marry, the ceremony had been held in their Berkeley workshop, surrounded by the devices that had brought them together. The wedding had made headlines not because of its luxury, but because of its guest list. Dozens of children in customized wheelchairs, young adults with prosthetic limbs designed in their facilities, families whose lives had been changed by technology that prioritized human dignity over profit margins. As Sophia concluded her speech with a challenge for the audience to imagine what could be accomplished when innovation served love rather than ego, Marcus and Jonathan exchanged the look that had become their signature communication method. They'd built something beautiful together, something that honored both their individual struggles and their shared dreams. Later that evening, as the three of them walked along the Berkeley waterfront, sharing ice cream and planning their next product development cycle, Marcus reflected on the strange mathematics of his life. He'd lost his birth family but gained a daughter and partner who knew him completely. The boy who'd once been called broken had helped design solutions for thousands of others who'd been told the same lie. In learning to see Sophia's strength rather than her limitations, he'd discovered his own worth beyond any measure of conventional success. Have you ever found your greatest purpose in helping others overcome challenges you've faced yourself? Subscribe to Heart Stories for more real narratives about resilience, love, and courage.